Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, PaPa Pacelli, but I know y'all are
Hey,
all watching the Oscars.
yeah, right. There's nobody here. No, we see people in the chat.
I know.
We know that there are people that are more interested in real news and real commentary than Hollywood bullshit. Oh, sorry, we didn't even get 2 minutes into it. And I blew it.
It's okay.
It's a good thing you're not a monetized channel here.
If bullshit's a problematic word, we're in real trouble. Okay.
Well, yeah, good point.
Uh,
Yeah.
what you sipping on?
I've got I almost got a ginger beer because I'm feeling a little off today. But right now it's just Diet Squirt.
You know what I got?
What do you got?
I got a Sioux City Sarsaparilla.
Oh, nice.
That's a fancy one, huh?
That's does it really have that thick sassafras flavor to it?
I just tried some. Yep. Got it from
Good,
Cracker
good.
Barrel. It's even got got the cowboy on front and
Wow.
everything.
Yeah.
That's like one of the original sodas, right? From back in the olden times.
It sure is. Absolutely.
I'm assuming it was around in the Old West. Uh, if movies
I remember
are,
when I was in New Mexico at one of those high adventure camps. You know this
yeah.
camping for 2 weeks with only what you got on your back, and there were these trail markers where you'd have to check in, and they'd have what do you call it, like a canteen or whatever, and you can go in and get a sarsaparilla, and they made it right there on site. It was fresh and real, and it was very different from what you get in the store these days.
I'm
It's
sure it's best when you get it fresh, yeah. But
absolutely. I mean, it's like it's not even the same thing. The stuff you get in the store these days, so-called root beer, has it makes you think of the idea of the flavor of a real sarsaparilla.
ever have birch beer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
Uh,
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So let's see here. Good evening, Age. Thank you, Auditor Dread, and good for you getting Metroid Prime remastered. It is an excellent remaster. I hope Nintendo does more of those. Actually, they give the old games a new line of paint. I think they should do that with Mario 64. If you ask me, but have a great stream, you geezers. Yeah. Hail to everyone. Thank you, Deleted Scenes. Thank you, Big Al. Let's see here. Matanui. I don't care who won. I'll say it's a better list this year than it's been for a while, but again, I haven't had time to watch a lot of the nominees lately. It's all rigged sometimes. Remember when Liz Taylor came out on stage and yelled out Gladiator and she was a little tipsy?
Well, I remember her being a little tipsy, but I don't remember any
She's like,
specific
Gladiator!
time.
That's what she said. Okay. When Gladiator won. Thank you, Netter. I appreciate that. And get a hello, love my life. It's always good to have Netter around.
Oh, trust me. Past 30 years, it's the only thing I'm living for.
And y'all of you who haven't been subscribed to her, subscribe. She can have a weekly stream, but she can have a stream.
Yeah, it is going to be weekly now. By popular demand.
So be sure to check that out this Thursday. And I'll be on with Birdman on Wednesday. I'll be doing a rewatch of Black Sunday. Remember Black Sunday?
Vaguely.
About the it's going to be like a terror ist attack during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Try not to say the full word. Hello, Zootopia. Welcome. Hi, everybody. You notice every time the Oscars goes up against Geeky Geezers that the ratings go. But I hope so. Everyone needs to be over here.
It's funny because he's not wrong, but I think that's where it's one of those where correlation does not equate to causality. I mean, I doubt that, the viewership of Geeky Geezers is what's driving down the Oscars. I think they're doing it just fine on their own. But you're right, that correlation does exist. So you could imply a causality there.
Yeah, definitely. I hope they make Metroid Prime 2 and 3 and 4. I know they're working on a 4 or another game like Metroid Prime or in that vein. I did play Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS, but the DS, frankly, it didn't have the control scheme, I think, to handle that game properly. It needed analog controls, and they just weren't there yet on the DS. But Horizon Talkers here, welcome. Troy, you got to take the win when Hollywood gives it to you.
Well, yeah, and let's face it, they're just giving it away to everybody at this point. It's like they couldn't be screwing up more if they were trying to. It's just incredible.
Well, speaking of Oscar winners,
yeah,
1972, Fiddler on the Roof. See my segue?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Best Picture. I didn't realize that. Okay, so Best Picture, 1972. Sometimes the Academy gets it right.
One of the longest running Broadway musicals.
Yes.
That was my first experience with it, because when I was auditioning for The Music Man here in the Chicago area, the theater was just wrapping up a very long run of Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh.
Yeah.
So interesting. But you auditioned? Did you get to be in it, or?
Well, they were just wrapping up Fiddler on the Roof. I auditioned for Music Man, and yes, I absolutely was in Music Man. I think I did. Well, I know I've mentioned it on streams before. I'm pretty sure that Sir Torin Clegane and I kind of talked about it on one stream we were on together, whether that was on my channel or someone else's. But yeah. So one could actually say I've done professional theater. I mean, it's not like the greatest claim to fame. It was local dinner theater, but still professional.
Yeah, no, you're a professional actor at some point. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the movie. I've never seen it on stage. I need to probably rectify that someday. Unfortunately, as we'll learn later, you won't be able to see Topo playing the part anymore. But
that's true.
That.
Yeah.
But I was a big fan of the motion picture. I think I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the stream. When I was around 5 years old, my dad picked up this invention called a video cassette recorder with VHS tapes, and he recorded movies off Showtime, which was illegal. So he didn't do that. I'm just saying.
They said that was true, but okay. Actually, they claimed that at the time. That was one of those things that there wasn't a specific law for, and it hadn't been tested in court. But it became legal, and do you know who one of the biggest proponents was to make it legal? A little bit of trivia. Fred Rogers. He went in front of Congress and talked about how important it was to allow people to be able to have the freedom, since it was being broadcast on television, to be able to record things and watch them off. Yeah. To schedule when they watch things with their family.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm glad he stood up for the regular folk. He's a good man.
Look, if you can find the footage of him talking about it on YouTube. I mean, it's obviously it was a public forum, and he was a man who you could not say no to. He was rational, he was reasonable, and he just made you like him so much. You wanted to go, yes, sir, you're right, sir.
Have you seen the Mr. Rogers movie, the one with Tom Hanks in it?
No, I have not.
It's excellent. I'm going to recommend it to you.
I'll check it out. Sure.
It's not really about him. It's really more about the reporter that was interviewing him, but he's more like a supporting character in it. But it's
Is it told from his point of view?
The reporters, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And him going up to see Mr. Rogers and how he doesn't. He keeps trying to get the dirt on Mr. Rogers, thinking this guy can't be for real.
And there is no dirt to get.
Yeah.
It's based on a true story, right? That
is,
reporter was a real guy, right?
Yeah, and
I thought so.
He wrote the article on him too, remember? And that was the thing. Yeah, it's worth checking out. It's a great movie. But back to Fiddler on the Roof, which is our good old days tonight. Sorry, we didn't say good old days. But again, this when I was a child, this made regular playings on the VCR. I would stick it in and I would watch it. And what is this musical about? It's about a man, a very traditional man from a Jewish community in Europe. Where in Europe? I'm trying to think now. Yugoslavia, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it was filmed, at least. Never mind. But anyway, Ukrainian village. Okay,
Yugoslavia is
so
a place
Ukraine.
that used to exist, kids.
Yes. Okay. So he's living in a Ukrainian village. That's right. And
That's what it would be now. Yeah.
yeah, and he's having to deal with changing times. So it's all
Yep.
about his daughters, and their daughters keep falling in love with men that he doesn't necessarily think are the best match for them, because in that community
Because
they rely
tradition.
tradition says you go with the matchmaker. The matchmaker will pick you
Exactly.
out your significant other. And I'm not here to throw stones at that, considering how messed up dating is in our current culture. I don't necessarily think matchmaking is so bad in retrospect. But
I'll be honest with you. I think, especially as we're looking at, okay, how do I say this without hitting any trigger phrases? The way things are working between the sexes, and consent, and issues that come up as the result of remorse and so forth. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of guys talking about, I'm just done with women. I think there's a lot of other guys just going, I wish I could just, go to a matchmaker, and my parents could work something out for me. I marry whoever they say, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, I'm trying to think though. Where was it though? But his daughters, they want to marry who they want, right? Yeah,
right.
That's
and he rebukes them about tradition, and there's a whole song that goes into that.
And I'm sorry you listen to that song and you're on Tevye's side. I'm thinking, you know what? He's not. He's not.
He's not wrong. Yeah,
he's not wrong.
You see you see his side. You do see the girl's side too.
You do.
You do kind of sympathize with them, and I think that's where you're meant to be with him. Think about it, right? Yeah. And when you think about where this is set, right, it's literally set in the borderlands. So not only is he a man between two times, in a transitional time,
yes,
he is geographically in a transitional place between countries. I don't know if many people realize that when they think about it.
Well, I think it is hinted at in the movie. Well, first we have... they have different things, like they go to the head rabbi and they're doing blessings. That should a blessing for the czar, and he says, "Well, a blessing for the czar, why not? May the Lord bless and keep the czar and keep him far away from us."
Yeah, keep him far away from us. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Leave us alone. We'll leave him alone. That sort of thing. But what I think is interesting, the youngest daughter, she wants to marry the tailor in town, and they're in love. And he's another Jewish man in the community, good man, but Tevye wants us, marry off their. I want to say his name is Razor Wolf, the butcher in town,
right?
And but his daughter wants to get married, so he then comes up with the concoction that he had a dream about all their dead ancestors coming and telling him that his daughter must marry the poor tailor. And there's this wonderful musical scene in the cemetery with all the ghosts of the dead ancestors.
Right.
I do appreciate that. And
those are the kinds of stories that are best told in stage productions, in my
probably.
opinion.
But the movie was good too. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen it on stage too.
Yeah.
And then let's see, we get to the middle, the second youngest daughter. The eldest daughter, she marries the tailor, and the second youngest, she's in love with a young Jewish man who's also has revolutionary leanings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's getting caught up in some of the utopian festivities of Eastern Europe during that time, and how we're going to change the world and capitalism bad and all that sort of thing.
Exactly.
I don't know what happens with them. I know they get caught up in the revolution, but I think Tevye still allows his second daughter to marry him because he's still a Jewish man. And then his youngest daughter, though, the next youngest daughter, she falls in love with a Christian man, and then she marries him and converts, and then each time the preamble, he does the tradition, and he goes back and forth, and he decides the daughter, but then he finally snaps and says, no, and he walks away. She had converted. She's no longer a Jew, so he had to walk away. And I kind of feel for the man. It's
right.
I think we have breaking points even when it comes to popular culture when we're like, no, when they keep changing
Yeah.
everything, and then there's that point we're not going to go back. I mean, I know.
Well, and
religion's a bigger deal, but
there is a theme about change and whether or not it's good, and unfortunately, you see a lot of people fall into this. Well, change is good, and if you're just going but when you really stop to think about it, you go, no, wait a minute. Rotting fruit is change. That's not good.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not all change is good. If it's not well thought out change, right, that leads to improvement, it is bad. This whole idea, you got to do something. No, you don't. Sometimes doing nothing is better. What's the first thing they say when you get to the site of an accident? Do they say, immediately jump in there and do something? It doesn't matter what you do. Something is better than nothing? No. They say you're better off doing nothing until you evaluate the situation. If you move somebody and they've got a spinal injury, you could cause them permanent paralysis. Right? And this is
call
the reason.
They will give you the instructions over the phone as to what to do. Yes.
And this is, I think, something that very oftentimes runs through a story that looks at tradition. Tradition exists for a reason. It has worked for thousands of years. Now, yes, as we learn more and grow and so forth, the old wives' tales, you start to look at them and go, well, just because we always did it doesn't mean we always have to do it. Why did we do it? Is there a better way? If you can make a good case for it, okay. But sometimes, shockingly, you realize those old wives' tales actually worked. And science discovers why. So you probably should keep doing those things,
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's the dichotomy you end up running into in this story. I think it's a great story for exactly that reason. I want to shift for a second to talk about. Sometimes I think these classic stories. One of the ways you see them is classic. We did this when we were talking about opera and the Looney Tunes, right? So many people know so many classic operas because of the Looney Tunes. My first encounter with Fiddler on the Roof was a parody done on the Electric Company. I know we've mentioned the Electric Company before. Oh. Yes. Rita Moreno, right? Everyone should know who Rita Moreno is. Morgan Freeman, right? They were on this public television kids show, educational kids show called The Electric Company back in the 70s. And they did a parody of Fiddler on the Roof. And they took it literally. That this character, because he was called Fiddler on the Roof, he literally had to get up on somebody's roof to fiddle. And he didn't want to because he was afraid of heights. Huh. So the song he would sing is, high on rooftops never would I dare, just call me Fiddler on the Chair. And that stuck with me all these years. That was my first, and that's when I started looking into it. And I was like, oh yeah, this really is a good story. My grandmother was the one who said, oh, you'd like this, because she saw me, she's like, Fiddler on the Chair, that's funny. Oh, have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? No, I've never seen Fiddler. Oh, you should see it. You'd really like it. Yeah.
But it's a great classic musical. It did win Best Picture 1972, among other awards that year. In fact, I'm wondering if the lead actor won an award as well. Did Topol win anything? Let me see.
I think he was nominated.
Definitely nominated. Unfortunately, we have some bad news.
Yeah,
Topol has now
this came out
passed
just
away.
last night as we were on, or at least for me, somebody mentioned it in the chat last night on Big Al's Rewatch.
Yeah. If you want to post that in the chat,
I did.
Can. Okay, great. Thank you for being on top of things. Topol, the Israeli actor who took on the role of Patriarch Tevier, the soulful shtetl milkman at the center of Fiddler on the Roof in his late 20s and reprised the role for decades, died on Thursday at his home in Tel Aviv, 87. His son, Omer Topol, confirmed the death. He said in an email that his father had Alzheimer's disease, which had caused his health to deteriorate over the last year. That's a brutal disease. My grandmother had it. Topol, born Chaim Topol, used only his surname throughout much of his professional life, came to international renown heading the cast of the 1971 version of Fiddler Its director, Norman Jewison, had chosen Topol, then a little-known stage actor, over Zero Mostel, who had created the part on Broadway. The film, for
Oh,
which
yeah.
Topol earned an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe Award, made him a star. For much of his late 20th century, he would be, in the words of the Jerusalem Post in 2012, Israel's most famous export since the Jaffa Orange. Topol reprised Tevier in stage productions worldwide for decades, including a 1990 Broadway revival for which he received a Tony nomination. By 2009, he had, by his own estimate, played the character more than 3,500 times. Wow, that's dedication to a role, don't you think?
Yep.
His other films include Galileo, the director Joseph Losey's 1975 adaptation of Bertolt Brecht's stage play, which he plays the title role. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
He was in Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon's Hans Zarkov. That's where a lot of our fans would know him from. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great movie. And
if not that one, go ahead.
Oh, the James Bond film For Your Eyes Only, 1981,
Columbo.
starring Roger Moore, which he played the Greek smuggler Milos Columbo. What's interesting about For Your Eyes Only is that movie sets up, I'm kind of spoiling it, but you think Topol's the villain, right?
Right.
And it turns out, no, it's the opposite. He's a smuggler, but he's not a villain. He's not a bad guy, you know? And he's being set up as the guy that Bond is supposed to kill while the other bad guy is getting away with it. So, good role, and I'm glad he got to be in a Bond film. We should all be so lucky. Well, maybe not so much today, but on television,
exactly.
On television, Topol played the Polish Jew Burrell Jastro in the 1983 miniseries The Winds of War, and reprised the role for its sequel, War Remembers, broadcast in 1988 and 1989. But it was indisputably for Tevier the weary tradition-bound every man who argues with God, bemoans his lot as the penurious father of 5 daughters, and lives increasingly warily amid the pogroms of 20th century Tsarist Russia that Topol remained best known. It's interesting, he does talk to God all throughout the play. He explains to the audience, and he explains to the audience what it's like being a Jewish man living in this time. It's interesting. He's kind of breaking the fourth wall.
Absolutely.
In fact, I once did a little breaking the fourth wall in fiction, which I don't usually recommend, but it works well in Fiddler on the Roof, the way he kind of addresses the audience, or maybe the character himself is imagining an audience, listening to him, and it's he'll be missed. In
fact, there's a, and of course it's a funny song within the span of the play. You can't talk about traditional marriages and arranged marriages and so forth without talking about finances, right? And so there's this bit where because he's not a wealthy man, he's very, very poor.
No.
And I think anyone who has been who has been struggling to get by kind of wishes they had it a little easier. And you're absolutely, there's a song where he sings it's probably one of the more famous songs from the play. If I were a rich man, all day long I'd biddy biddy bum. If I was a wealthy man, and it's actually a prayer to God, asking, can you please just kind of lighten my load a little bit? I know you promise not to give us more than we can handle, but can you maybe not hold me in such high regard,
and he have like 7 daughters, the bones.
Yeah,
you have all those kids' daughters. He didn't get one son or something. He was
exactly, and that means he's got to come up with the dowry and so on and so forth. And
he has to work the farm really on his own, I guess, unless he has some farm hands, I guess, right?
That's exactly right, and it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of sweet, and there's a little sadness there. It kind of hurts my heart that I think a lot of the younger generation would look at this and not get it at best, and deride it at worst. Tradition. Forget the past. Get out of it, you old boomer. Da 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 da. And, you're an istinophobe, and and God, you're praying to God. What's wrong with you? That's
I don't know. When I was a child, and of course I was, born Roman Catholic, I wasn't Jewish, but I still understood the concept of guy talking to God, I guess, as a religious person would. And I identified with him, even though, of course, he's from a community and a country very removed from my own. And
Well, how is that possible that you could identify with someone who is of a different religion and background than you? That just doesn't seem possible.
he wasn't even a ginger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe there are Jewish gingers, but anyway.
Yes, there are.
But yeah.
There's Italian gingers. In fact, there's Italian gingers in my family. A lot of places.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. I only know this secondhand from my grandmother because when the red started coming in my beard, she goes, "Oh, your great aunt, whatever, da da da. She was bright redhead. You must have, the trait." And I'm like, "Oh, well, there you go. I'm glad I didn't end up with the red." I don't know. I think I would have looked weird with red hair, but if I'd had a daughter with red hair, that would have been cute.
Wait. Yeah, if you had a daughter, women look. Actually, no. Some men can pull off the red hair. I'm just saying that.
Oh, absolutely. Some can. I'm just saying I couldn't. I know I couldn't.
Is this the first class of Geezers 101? Yeah, maybe. But yeah, and someone mentioned he'd like to have seen you in that lead. I could see you in that lead, maybe, or at least.
Oh, I never thought about that, but yeah, I probably could have. Oh, nowadays though, I'm Italian, so I couldn't. I have to be Jewish, right? Or a person of color. They would cast a person of color.
Is there a Klingon version of Fiddler on the Roof?
I don't think there is, but that would be a great one to do. I could totally see that. Dealing with the tradition and stuff. Yeah, it would be different traditions, but yeah, I could totally see that.
Of course, I guess I always kind of saw the Bajorans more as a Jewish analog or Israeli analog in Star Trek.
Oh yeah. And that whole Cardassian war thing was very
they were the fascists.
The Maquis being the French. They even called them the Maquis, for crying out loud. They didn't even bother to change the name, They
were always interesting because they were Federation people that had gotten fed up with what the Federation was doing and didn't like that treaty, and they had rebelled. I thought that was interesting that humans would. That was always a good dynamic with Sisko and that one Maquis character.
If you want to really, draw a correlation, and I think this is what it's meant to be. They may have had things in mind when they wrote it, but these stories are very universal, and every generation has something they could, project onto it. That's why you should never be so on the nose with these kind of allegories. Just point that out to the modern, writers. But you could also look at the Maquis being very, I was going to say you could see them as very similar to, like, for example, the Native Americans, because the whole idea behind the Maquis was they lived in, colonies that the Federation gave away to the Cardassians as part of a treaty. And they were like, hey, we live here. You can't just give away our home, And so there was, at least at the time, some suggestion of allegory to the Native Americans, but then they got literal with it, and they had an actual colony that was literally Native Americans of different tribes that had moved to a space colony, and they're like, the heck, we're losing our land again. So that was like kind of on the nose, right? But I would say another allegory for people that live in East, going back to the main topic here, going back to the Eastern Europeans, the Ukraine, which means the borderlands. Yeah. That's what the Maquis colonies were, right? So they're the ones caught up between, the East and the West. So you could reinterpret the story again for a modern audience. You don't have to write a new story for a new audience. You can just reinterpret the way you allegorize the older stories because they are timeless. I will get off the pulpit now.
No, it's fine. No, I think you're making a lot of sense. Boosh McFadden is being trolling a little bit down there, but
you may want to sit down. You're bald.
You know what I want to say? My friend Emilio, I met his uncle once told me. You know what he said? He said, God made a few perfect heads, and the rest he covered with hair.
That's funny. Nanette and I once were babysitting for some friends of ours in our church. They had a little girl they had adopted from China, and it was bedtime. We were putting her to bed. Okay, say your prayers, and she's saying her prayers. And she's going, God bless mommy, God bless daddy, because he has no hair. And it was one of those situations where Nanette and I are both trying so hard not to laugh because you don't want to. And then, good night, her parents come home and Tim's like, how was she? Was she good? I was like, well, she was very good. And then I told him about the prayer and he starts laughing.
That's
he goes,
funny.
she probably did that specifically trying to crack you guys up. I'm like, son of a gun! And we're trying not to laugh because we didn't want to, He's like, yeah, that's what she was going for. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. You got me, kid.
That's funny. I would have taken her at her word too, but all right.
Right? Because she was so I'm like that devious little thing, No, anyway.
Next story.
Yeah.
No transition, but I want to inform the chat I'm all out of sarsaparilla.
There you go. There you go.
To be fair, these are those regular old soda bottles, which I don't think contain a ton of soda. I think that's probably the amount you're supposed to drink. It's probably within those old bottles.
Exactly.
One of those a day is not going to kill you. But okay, Robert Blake, actor, acquitted in wife's killing, dead at 89 from heart disease.
That's pretty. I would call that natural causes.
Robert Blake, the
at
TV
89.
film actor, was acquitted of the murder of his second wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley. Bonnie Lee Bakley has died. He was 89. Blake's niece, Noreen Austin, confirmed the news of his death on Thursday, stating that the actor died from heart disease. She said in a statement sent to People that he was surrounded by family at home in Los Angeles. The New Jersey native began his career as a child actor in the Our Gang comedy shorts series at age 5. Wow, that's young. After a slew of television roles, first appearing on The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok, he starred in the 1967 Oscar-nominated film In Cold Blood. 1967 Oscar-nominated In Cold Blood. See, another Oscar time. The movie led to his breakthrough role on television, the 1970 TV show series Beretta, in which he starred as New York City detective Tony Beretta. The series lasted for 4 seasons from 1975 to 78 and led to his first Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series in 1975. After winning the Emmy that year, he was nominated for the same role in 1977 and would score 2 other nominations in 1983 and 1993. The nominations included an Outstanding Lead Actor for a Limited Series or Special Nomination for his role in the television crime drama Blood Feud, and an Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries or Special Nomination and for his part in Judgment Day, The John List Story. His last appearance on a television series came with 1985's Helltown, which lasted 1 season. He would later be arrested and subsequently acquitted in the 2001 shooting death of his wife, Bakley. Bakley, a 44-year-old mother of 4, was fatally shot on May 4, 2001 in Blake's car, which was parked around the corner from an Italian restaurant where the couple had just dined near their home in Studio City, California. At the time, Blake told authorities he'd left his wife alone while he returned to the restaurant to retrieve a gun he claimed had fallen out of his clothing, which authorities determined was not used in the killing. Nearly a year later, police arrested him. At his trial, prosecutors cited the statements of 2 retired stuntmen who alleged to authorities that Blake had attempted to hire them as hitmen, an allegation the defense attacked as unreliable. Blake and his lawyer, Harlan Brown, suggested in interviews immediately after the shooting that Bakley, who both the defense and prosecution later conceded was a career grifter of men, may have been murdered by a former boyfriend or one of many men she had bilked in con schemes. Blake and Bakley had been married for about 5 months at the time of the slaying after DNA tests proved that he'd fathered her then 11-month-old daughter, Rose. No eyewitnesses, blood or DNA evidence linked Blake to the crime. George deliberated 8 days before finding Blake not guilty. Bakley's family later brought a civil suit against Blake, who was ordered to pay $15 million by a civil jury, which found him responsible for Bakley's death. An appeals court cut that amount by half, and the case eventually was settled for an undisclosed amount. Years after the killing, Blake continued to maintain his innocence. Okay. It strikes me, at least with that first journey, it was a beyond reasonable doubt. You have to think about that, I guess. And did you follow this trial at all? Just out of curiosity.
I no, I didn't. I
Yeah.
was this was before I really got an interest in that kind of stuff. I wasn't a big Robert Blake fan. In fact, I had watched him on TV a bunch of times. I knew who he was, and what's kind of funny is to see him, as an adult and on all these shows, and also have seen him in The Little Rascals and never knew that they were one and the same person. It's like it was many years later when someone pointed it out, and I'm like, holy crap, I never made that connection, because you never really looked at the names of the actors of the kids from the Little Rascals, right? They were just the Little Rascals.
Yes.
But he was in a 1981 made-for-TV version of Mice and Men. He played George. I love Of Mice and Men. That wasn't really one of my favorite portrayals, so I know that's not a great, resounding, plus, from me on him. But I think one of his last films was a movie I love a great deal called Lost Highway. That's a David Lynch film. Definitely would recommend checking that out.
I have seen that. That recently got a Criterion Blu-ray. Check the private chat for a second, Troy, if you don't mind. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I'm focusing on.
No, it's
on
okay. Don't worry about it. But trying to think. Ernie. Okay, but Robert Blake no longer with us, but you can check out his work. Again, I don't know much about this case. So I don't know.
And I did want to say, one of the things we were talking about back in the green room was that, and you had said, and again, this is not something I followed a great deal, didn't really think much about after Lost Highway. Like I said, I was not like a huge fan, so I didn't really follow his career. But he really didn't do a lot of work after '97, and you were speculating that it might have been because of the trial that he kind of got a little bit blacklisted. And remember, he was acquitted. Okay, so yes, I did not follow the trial, but I know enough about the law that if you're acquitted, unless you know something that you didn't bring forward, to the police, you have no business having any, negative opinions about him based on that. And how hypocritical for anybody in Hollywood to be having any kind of issues with, what someone else may or may not have done, right? I'm not saying that murders don't happen, but I look at why does someone like Robert Blake get blacklisted? And I don't know, someone like I'm not saying that Robert Wagner necessarily had anything to do with the death of his wife, or that Christopher Walken would have covered it up or anything like that, but just saying, these rumors happen and whatnot.
To be fair, though, from what I could tell, though, he was still getting acting roles. No, actually, no, this was recent. This was after 2000, so never mind then. I remember him looking in bad shape when he was on trial, but maybe that was the heart disease. I never even thought about that. But, yeah.
But yeah, we are also talking about a lot of years too. So if he, since that trial, so if he had been struggling with heart disease back then, well, then he's lived with it for a long time. Actually, I think chances are it was more likely just the stress of the situation of the trial that we were probably seeing at that time.
Do you know
what's
just
speculation? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I brought this up with you, the movie Autofocus, the Bob Crane story before. It's a movie about the actor from Hogan's Heroes, right? And I think we mentioned the other night when you were bringing up VTRs. The DVD is very interesting because the movie makes it out like it could have been John Carpenter's friend that was played by Willem Dafoe in the movie. That maybe murdered him. On the documentary and the DVD, though, it tells a very different story. Apparently, Bob Crane had a long list of suspects of people who could have offed him. Do you understand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
people, like maybe a jealous husband, maybe his ex-wife hired. No one knows. And the thing was, I was looking at the prosecution's thing, and I'm thinking, I may not like this John Carpenter guy, but it doesn't make him a murderer.
Right.
Like, I don't think the evidence pointed to that. I think the jury was right that they couldn't convict beyond a reasonable doubt that it was him.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too many cases, when they're jury cases, go based on biases, right? We're sure he's guilty because he looks shifty, and he lied about this, and he cheated on his taxes, so he's probably a murderer too. And that is not how it is supposed to work. It is supposed to be, maybe he lied, maybe he cheated, maybe he stole. But if you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed a murder, you must acquit. I mean, yes. Everybody laughs about it, but the O.J. Simpson trial, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And honestly, there's another case where what you think and what was demonstrated by evidence do not match. If you can't prove it,
that was a screw.
Pardon me?
That was a screw up with the
prosecution. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The prosecution didn't do their job. There was a lot of screw ups on the point of view of the police. So right there, and we're kind of getting off topic, but let's assume for the sake of argument, O.J. Simpson, killed those people.
Right.
You screwed up the evidence so badly. Too bad, so sad. He needs to be acquitted. But since the evidence never came, I've never been so sure that he did commit the murder. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with all of our judicial system. If you make an assumption that someone is guilty and put them away, and you are wrong, not only have you sentenced an innocent person to jail and ruined their lives, but the actual murder is still out there. That's the other problem. You have done no good for society if you're wrong. So you better be 100% right.
Exactly.
Anyway, that was just my little 2 cents about a man who may or may not have had anything to do with his wife's death, but there's no evidence that he did. And that was demonstrated in court. So you need to kind of let that go if you happen to be of that opinion. Just saying.
And frankly, he'll be judged one way or the other now, since he's no longer with
Well, yeah, you make an excellent point there, Boomer. hadn't been thinking of it that way, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
But I want to say
as I suppose, in a way, we all will be.
I'll say something to my wrenches. Relax. It's okay. it's all right.
Anyway, I was dimly aware of what was going on, so I
don't worry about it. Okay.
Obviously, I was kind of caught up in the conversation here.
It's fine. No, that's good. And again, it's not a big thing. I did want to mention, though, I think deleted scenes. I believe that you were mentioning Oscar winners during the stream, so keep doing that. I'm curious. I think you said that All Quiet on the Western Front got cinematography, so that's interesting. Okay, I need to watch that movie.
Stephen, did you see All Quiet on the Western Front, and did you agree with that assessment? Just wondering.
So next up, we got Ghostbusters.
Yep. So this is kind of a follow-up to what we were talking about last week, and I was expecting this. I got to be honest with you. Ernie Hudson shares update on his role in the upcoming Ghostbusters sequel. My representative says it is all happening. So, refresher for last week, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how he had expressed being marginalized in the original Ghostbusters run, and he's pretty spot on. And without ever mentioning any reason for it, he didn't. Nobody said it had anything to do with race or anything like that. But it's very true. He kind of got shafted when it came to being part of the promotional materials and so on and so forth, which was pretty unfair. And he said he kind of felt that. And then going into this sequel to Afterlife, At the time, we were calling Firehouse. More on that with the next article. But he was saying whether or not he was going to be involved in it, he didn't know for sure. But if not, it wasn't because of him. And so we kind of speculated a little bit. Maybe he's thinking he won't be. Maybe he's hearing something on that side. And maybe there's some negotiations going on behind the scenes. And now I think this kind of dots that I or crosses that T for us.
Yeah, so here we go. For those hoping to see Ernie return to the role of Winston Zedmore, while there's been no confirmation just yet, today's appearance on NBC's Today Show provides a much more positive update when asked if he'll be back for the sequel. I think so. I mean, my representatives say it's all happening. They're measuring me for suits and sending me scripts, but I'm like, yeah, but, I haven't signed. Again, while this doesn't confirm Ernie's involvement, his overall tone and demeanor appeared more upbeat when talking Ghostbusters, and admitting that he's already been measured for suits makes the return of Winston Zedmore seem much more likely. So you're thinking that this is them negotiating. Is that right?
Yeah, I absolutely think that's what it comes down to. And remember, when it comes to Hollywood, you're not only negotiating for, your how much money you're going to make on it, and how you're going to make that money, whether it's up front or it's, on spec or it's, you get a part of the marketing or whatever. These are all parts of the negotiation, but it's also about billing. It's also about, how big your role is, how many lines. They get into that kind of stuff. That is the business behind the thing, and it seems kind of cavalier. It seems kind of mercenary, but there's a business. I think people forget. When we talk about the message and we talk about good entertainment, we tend to forget the business is important too. Otherwise, none of it happens. So and let's face it. I mentioned this the past couple weeks. Ernie Hudson is, for many fans, he is the audience insert character.
Yeah.
He represents us, the common person. Joining the Ghostbusters. He didn't come in with all the proton pack knowledge and
Nope.
the spiritual knowledge and stuff. All he knew was what he read in the Bible, and he had a good work ethic.
I love that scene when do you believe in God? And he's like, oh, never met him, because Ray probably. And then, of course, he's saying, don't you think all this stuff is happening? Like the guy he mentions Revelation, because the dead rising from the grave. Doesn't this sound familiar to what you've read in the Bible? And then,
in fact,
turn on some music. He says,
talk about some great maintenance of story arc, right? Because he brings that up with Ray driving in the car, right? Mm-hmm. And he quotes that line from Revelation. In Ghostbusters Afterlife, when Ray goes to answer the phone, he holds out his left hand to pick up the phone, and you see a tattoo on his left wrist, and it's that passage from Revelation. It had that much impact on him.
Okay, cool.
That is some good writing. That is without a single word of dialogue. You get a lot of understanding about the character and where they've come and what's happened with them. It's that's good stuff. So and so we know that also from Afterlife. It's because of Winston. I mean, yes, we had Ray, we had Venkman, and we had Dirt Farmer, Egon.
Yeah.
Who were the ones that created the business, but honestly, they couldn't keep the business going. It really came down to Winston, who had the business acumen to keep it going all these years. And not just Ghostbusters. He diversified. He created this, company. and was able to keep Ray's bookstore alive, was able to keep the headquarters, even though they were out of business, keep the place going, maintain the equipment. When Ray just kind of went and started selling used books, Venkman went back to academia. Egon became a dirt farmer. He was the only one who kept the vigilance of the standing in the gap, protecting our world from the other side. But Winston is very, very important. You wouldn't still have the character, of course. I mean, the character kept the business going, and you wouldn't be able to continue that now without him. So yeah, I think Ernie Hudson's important, and we need him to be a key character in this next movie.
Yeah, just work it out, guys, and I look forward to seeing the sequel.
Absolutely.
Let's get to the next one. New working title.
Whatever they call that sequel, because they had been working with the working title Firehouse, yeah. But now the upcoming Ghostbusters sequel reportedly gets a new working title.
I kind of like this working title. I don't know if they'll stick with it, but anyway, I'll get into it. Announced during last year's Ghostbusters Day celebration, the upcoming Ghostbusters sequel was given the code name of Firehouse, being said to pick up where Afterlife left off, with the Ecto-1 driving back into Manhattan, the home of the Ghostbusters. While filming set to begin later this month at Warner Brothers Studios, Lee lives in England. Many fans have questioned if the franchise was to receive a drastic change of scenery, or instead the United Kingdom will merely double as New York City, with today's report seemingly swaying that to the latter. Think about maybe setting a story in England, though. That might be a cool thing to do later on. But initially...
Yeah, I'll tell you... Well, let me pause you there for a second. A lot of the expanded universe for Ghostbusters, whether it's the cartoon series, Extreme Ghostbusters, comic books, and even just the fan cosplaying of it, has this idea that every city has their own Ghostbusters franchise. So that was always... That was always the idea. So absolutely, if they want to expand Ghostbusters going forward, they almost have to go that route.
Be funny, Ghostbusters London, and it could be an English cast or something that you could do something. Like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Initially reported by Ghostbusters Wiki, the newest production weekly has doubled down on an alternate code name for the sequel, being listed as Hell's Kitchen. Somehow even more New York than Ghost Corps, homage to Tribeca's Hook and Ladder 8. The title serves as a nod to the west side of Midtown Manhattan. It should be stated that Columbia Picture Ghost Corps has yet to confirm Hell's Kitchen as the sequel's revised working title. But with filming set to go off mere weeks, we'd expect confirmation soon. So keep checking back, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Well, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Why not?
Oh yeah, I get all this Ghostbusters. I get all these Ghostbusters updates from Ghostbusters News. They are the premier site for whether it's their webpage or the YouTube channel for all the Ghostbusters news. They'll know about it before anybody else does. So definitely
remember to do a shout
worth
out
checking them out.
Absolutely. But yeah, looking forward to this. We need a nice movie to watch around Christmas time. That's good. Okay, please. Remember the one time when Solo premiered in the summer, so they didn't have a Star Wars movie that Christmas, so we got Aquaman. That was the big hit.
Yeah.
Okay. But Ghostbusters Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, I like the ring of it. I think it could work. All right. So let's go to the next one.
Yep. There we go.
I want to say
let's talk Comicsgate.
Oh my goodness! You can't say that word. You can't say that word now. I'm now blacklisted. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Associating me with that hate movement.
Perhaps
it's actually not funny. We'll get there though. Okay, so this is this I saw on Bounty the Comics while I pick on them for their long website addresses. They at least have they at least can give some good articles when it comes to this sort of thing. Let me go ahead and get into it. After having troubles with Indiegogo shadow banning nearly every Comicsgate-related project using their platform, Crowdfunder has banned Private American and plans to ban all other Comicsgate-related projects. I was not aware that Indiegogo was messing around with the campaigns either. So this is news to me. I remember in the heyday, the Indiegogo was the big thing because I think there was some other Kickstarter I think had kicked them off as well. The situation began with legendary comic writer Mike Barron launching his book Private American across 3 platforms. Indiegogo shadow banned the campaign, followed by Kickstarter targeting and removing it. And finally, on December 21st, 2022, Mike Barron announced Crowdfunder had banned his book. The banning came on the heels of a hit piece by the Daily Kos alleging the book is racist, despite the main hero being a person of color. Because of the article, an online mob falsely reported the Private American campaign. The companies caved, alleging Barron violated their terms of service. Private American publisher Chris Braley made attempts to speak with representatives of the Crowdfunder platform to plead with them to allow art to be made without censorship. His results were not fruitful, but he obtained a Zoom call with the company's CEO, David Barak. While we recognize that you can't lump everybody that belongs to a certain group together as all being the same people, Barak opened in the 12-minute video. Unfortunately, Comicsgate has the reputation that it has, and if people are going to declare themselves as part of Comicsgate, we can't change Comicsgate's reputation, even though we know there are bad elements there, just like there are bad elements everywhere. The general perception of Comicsgate is problematic for us, and that's kind of where we have to leave it, he stated. Despite his words regarding not lumping everybody that belongs to a group together and making negative judgments, Crowdfunder is doing exactly that. It sounds like anyone who associates with Comicsgate is not going to be allowed on Crowdfunder. Am I hearing you properly? Braley asks to clarify. You are, Brock said. The interview continues for 10 more minutes of Brock backtracking, going in circles, and gaslighting Braley about the decision when Crowdfunder is banning based on guilt by association and all because of the way left-wing mobs have branded Comicsgate. Brock does not elaborate on how he's going to police the Comicsgate Association on the website, nor what constitutes Comicsgate membership, but from the company's actions, it appears as if they are willing to monitor people's political affiliations or interests on other platforms and gatekeep projects from getting funded, even if the projects themselves don't have anything political to them. Brock also accused Comicsgate of promoting a non-inclusive agenda and says, when we are notified of that, then yeah, we will have to exclude. The irony of his excluding an entire group while touting inclusivity appears to be lost on him. Braley and others have taken to Twitter to vocalize their distaste for Crowdfunder's cancel culture. He echoed a sentiment of many conservatives who have been burned by major corporations through the arts by stating, life is too short to give money to people who hate you. Barack, however, decided to play victim, replying to the tweet, I don't hate you, Chris. I forgive you. You secretly recorded me and posted the video with pictures of my children in it without my consent. I pity you. Profiteering off manufactured outrage means more to you than your dignity. I stand by my words, however ill-gotten by you. I want to make a point. Those pictures of his children, they were so small, you had to really be looking for them. I don't think anybody was paying attention to that until he brought it up.
It's still not kosher, though.
Well, anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Barack, however,
decided. You got to keep the families out of it, keep the kids out of it, and.
Okay, but I am saying though that I didn't even realize there were photos of kids there, and perhaps neither did Braley when he did this. Do you understand? They were like tiny little pictures next to these big paintings. Do you understand? I didn't realize that.
I understand that, but you still that these are things you need to consider when you're, scouring someone else's webpage and grabbing pictures and.
Fair enough. I'm not arguing against that point. Maybe you could have
that kind of stuff has gotten real lax these days.
But at any rate, okay.
But yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to finish it up, but I have my own comments. The Crowdfunder CEO took the victim narrative to the next level afterward, just susceptibly framed the situation while tagging left-wing journalists, tweeting, Comicsgate is now after Vancouver-based crowdfunder. DM me if you want the story. Ethan Van Sciver, creator of Cyberfrog and owner of the Comicsgate trademark, replied to the tweet with an accurate description of what's going on, saying, "The story is that David Brock was stupid enough to go on record that crowdfunder discriminates against and thus validates a hugely successful movement in mainstream comics that opposes political discrimination. He's now the topic of discussion by said movement." I listened to the whole interview. I didn't realize at the time when I was listening to it that this was secretly being recorded. I guess you shouldn't do that. But at the same time, I will say this Brock guy, he does strike me as a worm.
Yeah.
That was my impression of the man. And apparently this is the problem with this comic book right here. There's nothing in this campaign that says Comicsgate.
Right.
This is an indie comic, and I think it was listed because the creator of this was actually maybe he had some association with some people involved in Comicsgate. Maybe he talked to Ethan Van.
It's all secondhand. It's based on it's based on people on the internet who didn't like something he said or whatever, and then said, "This guy is Comicsgate." They decided that without him having said that, then went to the platform and said, "This guy's Comicsgate. That means he's an Islamophobe and you should get rid of him." And how do these businesses respond? "Oh, we can't do that. Let's get rid of him." It's the exact same thing that happened with the Razor Company pulling their ads from the Daily Wire, which will. I bring that up for a reason. I'll get to that in a second. But they don't care whether it's got any legitimacy. They just don't want any problems. So they do Pontius Pilate and wash their hands. Yeah. And well, that's great. That's a great way to just lose business, because you're just pushing away anyone who would do business with you. Because you're telling everybody, if we do business with someone you don't like, all you got to do is tell us and we'll stop doing business with them. And guess what? There's always going to be someone who doesn't like someone you're doing business with. You will have nobody to work with ever then.
I don't trust crowdfunder. I wouldn't go to them with a 10-foot pole, and I would not purchase anything off of their site. I know me saying to boycott, and boycotts don't work unless they're successful. But I find what they've done here to be very underhanded.
This is a case
this is
where
guilt by association. This isn't even, I think, the writer saying that he was a member of Comicsgate or he was part of it. He just maybe he probably talked to somebody. There are a lot of creators in Comicsgate. Ethan Van Sciver, who was a very important comic book artist back in the day, especially for DC. I mean, I think he created the Red Lantern Corps. You're going to be running into other artists. I mean, for all I know, this is because he had association back when he was working in the comics industry before Comicsgate. I don't know what the
it doesn't have
canceled off of this thing.
The reason doesn't matter. There doesn't even have to be a reason for these kinds of witch trials, and these witch hunts. It's really ridiculous. But it does come down to why give your money to people that hate you? But in this case, I'm not saying that the boycott should be from people buying anything from, someone using the crowdfunder. It should be the people that want to crowdfund with them that should say, you know what? I can't trust you. I can't trust my business to you.
No.
So I'm not even going to bother using you. So I look at people like Eric July, Mandy Summers with Stuntman Comics and so forth.
Right.
They're not using these platforms anymore. That you go right to their sites directly and you crowdfund from their sites.
I think the time is for them to get away from these and to eventually maybe even come up with I don't know, maybe Eric D. July is doing this eventually, have his storefront when these campaigns become successul enough, and have it be so other indie, you just have
and that is
where you can purchase these indie creators.
That is exactly what I love about these upstart companies, because it used to be if you went through a crowdfund, when it ended, that's it. You missed out on the first issue. You're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And you got to hope that the person doing the comic is smart enough to do reprints that you can get with the next installment. Whereas what I see Eric July doing, what I see Mandy Summers doing is, now that it's funded, it's going to be on our storefront all the time. You didn't get in on it, it'll be there now for you to buy. You just won't get all the perks. You won't get the extras. You won't get the alternate covers. But you're not out the ability to get into the story as we're going forward, and that's going to be especially important with the Ripaverse. Not sponsored, but Ripaverse.com. Just if you want in on the ground floor, they've got their first issue out, which I got. You could see I did a video about it. Stephen Otten, Deleted Scenes, did a video about it too. Same thing with stuntmancomics.com. Although they've got a bunch of different titles, the only one that I really got into was Jack the Ripper Vampire Hunter. They're going on their they're going on their second. They're going into their second issue. I just got in on, and so you go directly to their sites. That's stuntmancomics.com and ripaverse.com.
Yeah, Zootopia apparently bought Isom. It was a good book. And apparently the shadow banning in the Go-Go concerned one person, if I'm reading correctly. So I don't know if it was as widespread as
I'm gonna
bounding like the.
So I don't mean to sound like I'm victim blaming or anything like that, but it's like, you know what, man? Hope you learned something. You need to get away from these platforms and do it the way the people that are successful are doing it. Eric July actually got burned too, as he was trying to do the financing. I think it was I don't remember who the financing company decided not to give him the money. Wouldn't just like with the truckers up in California. It's like, okay, fine, won't use you ever again. And these companies, this is where Get Woke, Go Broke comes in. It's not about politics. It's about business. If I can't trust you, I won't use you. And a lot of other companies, people that are intelligently running their businesses look and go, okay, maybe I'm on the side of your politics, but when the winds of change happen and you decide I'm on the wrong side now, this could happen to me. I don't want to get involved in a company that's going to pick and choose.
Anyone can be on the wrong side of this. It just takes hearsay and
that's just it. It doesn't even matter what you really believe. It's just someone comes and says, hey, they said this, that, and the other. They're not going to go back and look at your Twitter history or whatever to see if you've engaged in wrong think or not. They're just going to take the word of whomever it is, and that whomever it is could just be your competition trying to drive you out of business.
I had a conversation. It's like I had a conversation with someone who eventually expressed the wrong opinion, so now I'm also canceled. This is ridiculous. This is like what they used to say about McCarthyism back in the 50s. But
yep.
This is... Anyway, but actually, Auto Dread is suggesting maybe you do a review of that comic book sometime. That might be an idea.
Me doing Isom? Oh, Jack the Ripper.
That might be an idea.
Yeah, I probably could. I did like an unboxing and talking about the art and whatnot. But yeah, I could probably do a little bit more in-depth.
Or you could do one for the second volume when you get it too. My Isom unboxing is still the most watched live stream. Yeah. So good for you guys for supporting the indie creators out there. I've done it myself, but I'm telling you, though, I think now is the time to get away from these platforms. I think it was okay in the beginning, but I think you got to think one step ahead.
I am not saying
that's what you have to do.
I am not saying boycott, but what I am saying is be mindful of who you do business with. Remember that you do vote with your dollars. And if you are giving your money to bad people, you are contributing to that. Okay? Yeah. I'm looking at you, Disney. And I'm looking at, the camps next to where you were filming and next to your park in Hong Kong where people go to think really, really hard, and the pet nail trimmers that you have working for you and running your company. Trying to talk around things, but I think people understand what I'm saying. You are supporting those bad things. And not to mention the destruction of our culture. So just keep that in mind, and quit giving your money to people that hate you.
Yeah. I still want to see Deadpool 3 though. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that's a
but see, even that, even that, and even the next Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm waiting until I hear if they're any good. If they've been ruined, I'm not even going to bother.
It has to be. I'm hoping that under Chapek, not that I was a big fan of his, that Ryan Reynolds had full creative control because they want the money, and that this was being done more under the 20th Century Studios side of things. It could end up being a disaster as well, and that'll be a big shame. But I'm hoping that they'll just let this just let Deadpool series end on a high note and make it this nasty comedy like the last couple, please, and don't screw it up.
But
it's Disney, though.
We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose.
Okay, but let's get to the next one. More writer strike news, right? Or not writer strike yet. There's
not yet. It's an update, though, kind of along those lines. The negotiations are happening. That's right.
All right, so here we go. The Writers Guild of America's members have spoken, and they are supporting their union's objectives for the 2023 round of contract negotiations. In a vote over the union's patterns of demands this year, a list of general priorities leaders would like to address in its negotiations with studios and streamers. 98.4% of the union was in favor, while 1.6% voted against, with 5,643 members voting in total. These figures represent an uptick in member engagement and approval of priorities compared to the 2020 round of negotiations, when 3,336 members voted and 90.7% supported that year's pattern of demands. Does this mean they've had this happen before where members don't always vote?
Yeah, I mean, there's just speaking about labor unions in general, not this one in particular. A lot of times the average rank and file may not have strong opinions. I mean, it's just like voting, in presidential elections and stuff like that. Some people have very strong opinions. Some just really don't. And I think a lot of times it's less about what they're voting on so much as I can't afford to be out of work.
I got you. Well, I have some opinions what I'm going to be reading a little bit, but okay. 2020 of these pattern demands called out mini rooms, use of excerpts without compensation, material written with the insistence of artificial intelligence as being in need of further regulation. What does that mean, material written with the assistance of artificial intelligence?
Okay. So what's starting to happen is, and you're seeing it online, you're seeing it everywhere, where people are starting to use these AI programs to write papers, to write articles, to do artwork, and so forth. And the more you look at it, you start to get into a weird philosophical area of, are these artificial intelligences, are they actually stealing, plagiarizing, since they're drawing from the mass of copywritten material that's available out on the internet. And in a way, it absolutely is true. It's kind of funny. I was watching a YouTube video where just for play, this artist, I want to say his name was Jaffa or something like that. He's very, very talented. He did where just playing around with the software, he would type in, draw me a picture of a guy riding a dragon carrying a pencil over a castle or whatever. And some of the artwork came out really, really good. Some of it came out really, really weird. And as he was doing these different, prompts to pull up artwork, one of them had this big watermark in the background. And it wasn't a watermark like you could read the watermark or anything, but it was like the AI used and saw that watermark as an element of the picture and created its own watermark over that element. It was really, really strange. But what it comes down to is, but I'm seeing the same thing happening with news articles, with AP. It appears that the AP is starting to use this, and it requires diligent editing so that but Do you think that diligent editing's happening? I don't think so. And it's starting to happen with the writing of stories as well.
Is this what you're saying, though? This is to protect the writers of people using these AI programs that come up with quote-unquote original stories and stealing their own work? This isn't about them using the AI
both sides of it. They don't want their work being used as fodder for AI, in quotes, inspiration, because... Right?
Yes.
It's their intellectual property. That would be illegal. And because they would deserve to be paid for it. And on the other side, they don't want to be outsourced to a computer.
That's fine. Okay, I actually respect this now. I thought they were saying, well, I had the computer write this for me and someone stole it and I want residuals from that. I'm like, the computer wrote your story, you shouldn't get residuals. You didn't write it, but that's not what this was. Okay, now I understand.
Now I will, if that was the case though, I will defend that, because that AI still is a tool, right? No. Okay. Like a photocopier is a tool, right? And if you are using it to make illegal copies of something and sell it or distribute it or something, that's illegal. Okay. But if you are using that photocopy in the way that it's intended legally, it's a tool and you should be able to do that.
Guess what?
So,
guess what I did this afternoon? To make an example, I used one of these AI programs to write something. Would you like to hear what came out?
Oh my God. This ought to be good for a laugh. Go for it.
I only gave it one line. It says, give it one line and it'll write something for you. So my line was, the Loch Ness Monster was spotted yesterday. Figured it could be something interesting.
Sure.
This is me. The Loch Ness Monster was spotted yesterday, and now the AI continues. It was a great thing to see, but I do find it sort of odd. I think they've tried that one before, or perhaps it's a British thing. Whatever it is, I'm not sure how to relate to it. Perhaps I've just had a bad day, but I'm usually not a bit like this. I guess it's just a really strange day. I got nothing. I have nothing left to give. I'm completely empty. There are no words that can possibly describe how I feel. It's like my body and brain are rebelling against me and have taken the crazy out of me. I keep wondering if I'll ever feel normal again. And this is my big vacation. My time to be happy and carefree. The last thing I need is to be miserable. I'm too old to deal with this kind of shit. I just don't know what to do. That's what it got.
Dude, tell me that doesn't sound like some of the articles that you read online these days.
You think they're having AI help them write these articles?
I would not be surprised. Here's the worst part. This is the opposite side of the Turing test, right? The Turing test, of course, being where if you're communicating with an AI, can you tell that it's a robot or whether it's a human? And the idea being that AIs get so advanced, you can't tell them from, rational thinking humans. But I think humans are coming down to a level that they sound like robots.
Irrational, especially online.
Exactly.
And now, is the AI just trying to imitate?
I could totally see reading an article that's meant to be about a sighting of the Loch Ness Monster completely degenerating into that writer's, midlife crisis.
Yes. I don't know. I
think we've kind of gotten off track, though, because this wasn't really meant to be about the AI. It really was meant to be about the demands of an overworked and underappreciated writing pool.
Welcome, Pat Wannabe, to the chat.
Hey, good to see you, man.
Okay, courts held that randomly generated images and music cannot be copyrighted based on what most IP I've heard, common AI, I believe. AI works cannot be copyrighted. Okay, I don't know. This is a brave new world we're living in, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, there comes a point, and this is also an indictment of the problems and shortcomings of intellectual property law, right? Because Pat Wannabe is making a great point about at what point does it cease being inspiration. Inspiration is a good thing, right? But it's when you literally take something letter for letter, when you start tracing. You see it in the comic book industry all the time. When you hold up two pictures, it's very clear that one was an original drawing And the one that came later, somebody traced elements of someone else's.
Right.
You know, we see it all the time. Disney has done it
Robin
many,
Hood.
many times. Now it's a little bit different when Robin Hood and Snow White and whatnot, and you see it. Well, it's a little bit different when it's their own work. They own that intellectual property, and
It's
you look at it and go, I see what they did there, ha ha ha. But it's a very, very different thing when people aren't getting credit for it, and actually, that could still be something that Disney's doing.
You know, in the movie Heavy Metal, there was a tracing thing going on with that too. Do you remember the scene where Den, the John Candy character, he has his love scene with that with the evil queen?
Right.
That was actually taken from tracing done for an Arabian Nights segment, and it was an Asian woman instead. But they decided not to do that story, but they still reused that scene because I guess they liked the way it turned out for the Den scene. So.
Yeah, and so that's and I'm seeing a lot of this kind of stuff. I see it in comics. I see it with TV and now especially with streaming. A lot of writers doing a lot of work that gets co-opted, and they're not being recognized for it. And whether it involves AI or not, it's happening, and they have a right to express some grievance about it.
But welcome to the chat, Pacific 414.
Oh, hey, good to see you, man.
And just want to end with beyond voting on the Guild's general pattern demands, WGM members have been providing feedback for some more in-depth negotiation priorities that have been developed at recent member meetings. Those meetings, some setting some kind of minimum staff size on television series, was positioned as a potential hill to die on for writers, as the Hyde Reporter has previously reported. An additional meeting member for both East and West Coast branches of the Guild is scheduled for Wednesday, March 14th. So it's still ongoing. They haven't.
And I would say regarding the AI thing, a human can be inspired by someone else's work and be truly transformative and draw on some of the same themes, but make it their own and completely different. Inherently, AI cannot be inspired. It can't. It can only copy. There you go. It's really that simple.
There was an interesting scene on it was an anime I like called Big O, and it took place in this weird, like, almost post-apocalyptic type, like post-crisis type future where all the humans and androids woke up and they lost their memories and they didn't. But there was a scene in the one episode where, like, the one hero of the show, he has a robot living in his huge mansion, and he hears her playing the piano to wake him up in the morning because he wants to sleep in, and she always plays the piano. And he says, "I understand why your piano playing's off. You're mimicking us, but you're not playing yourself. Do you understand?"
Yeah.
He was saying all she was doing was imitating, and he actually had to take her to an actual, like, a pianist who knew how to, which oddly enough was also another robot, but explaining that no, you're imitating. You have to learn how to actually play like an actual person would, So I don't know. I don't think AI is there yet, and if AI is learning from us, that's kind of scary right now, considering how nuts we are in line. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, and that's the other part too. It's the things that AI are being used for. They were never intended to be.
Yes.
So they are drawing from the wealth of the internet without restrictions, and it's like there probably should be some restrictions.
Yes. Yeah. Scientists. This used to be a thing in science fiction movies about having restrictions. The mad scientist,
That's why the three laws of robotics exist.
Yes, and actually, I give points to the Japanese in their anime. A lot of the robots typically do have those three laws.
Yep.
In fact, there was an argument when the robot was going around killing people. Roger Smith was addressing it, saying, "You're not following the three laws," because he understand, even in this anime, they have those three laws. But anyway, let's go on to the next article. Bob Iger. Okay.
Yep.
Bob Iger, Disney. Thought we could go a week without talking about Disney.
They are the gift that keeps on giving. It's like they are going out of their way to destroy their business model.
Yeah, so okay. Didn't they have this argument discussion with Data and Star Trek TNG? They cited
Yes,
him
they
to create
did.
original works, even if his imitating styles ideas. He was a sentient machine, but just saying. I think he was teaching an art class once, wasn't he? In one episode, if memory serves.
He was doing a painting, and but it was what he's referring to specifically was there was an episode where he was playing music, and someone made the implication that he was literally regurgitating someone else's, and he wasn't. He was taking some from one artist, some from another artist, and so forth. That's the key, though, is that sentience, the decision. Why does he choose to do it? And there is no that decision. That ability to be inspired doesn't exist in non-sentient AIs. It really is artificial intelligence. One could argue that if Data is sentient, he is no longer an artificial intelligence. He was created artificially, but his intelligence is now organic.
Sentient.
Not organic in the sense of made up of carbon and
Right.
mitochondria and stuff, but organic in that it has a life of its own now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope AI gets to that point where it's as a benefit to society and not this creepy thing we're seeing right now. But
on the one hand, I think that the way AI is going, it's going to be the end of the human race.
oh no.
But on the other hand, it's like, but the way I see the human race going, with or without the AI, we could be going that way too. So,
Yes.
just
All
like
right.
Disney.
Let's go to Disney. So anyway, what are we talking about? Okay, Bob Iger. Disney reduced costs on films, TV shows to focus on quality.
Nerds
not
unite,
volume.
100%. I like that.
Disney CEO Bob Iger said Thursday that his company is closely examining all aspects of its content business across film and TV as it plots the best path forward in a tricky media environment that includes a linear TV business in decline, a theatrical film business with an uncertain future, and a streaming business that is growing but requires a path to profitability.
Yeah.
Speaking at a Morgan Stanley conference, Iger said the company will specifically be looking at how much it is spending on content and how many projects it produces going forward. I'm really pleased that the support that I'm getting from the content creators of the company is significant and real, and it comes in the form of reducing the expense per content, whether it's a TV series or a film, where costs have just skyrocketed in a huge way and not a supportable way, in my opinion. They all agree to that, Iger said, adding that it was also about understanding how much volume we need, reducing how much we make. So it's how much we spend on what we make and how much we make. However, what? So it's how much we spend on what we make and how much we make.
Yeah, so let me rephrase
What did
it.
he just say there? Wait a minute. Okay.
No, let
sorry.
me explain. Okay, because what he's saying is a good point. It's something that we have been saying for 3 years. Okay, so look at Cocaine Bear, for example. Right, it did very, very well, but it cost very little to make. Okay, it was a very low budget, so that means it makes a lot of money. It may not make $1 billion, but it made a good chunk of change, and that's not cut into by the operating costs. So that's how profit works. Afterlife was another one. It was in big budgets, in quote, but much lower cost than most movies of its kind. So when it did very, very well, that money goes back to the company.
Go back to the old Star Trek movies. Star Trek II had its budget reduced heavily since motion picture, but it still did well relative to its budget.
Exactly, but when you see these big blockbuster films spending, $200, $500 million, and that's the budget that they announce. That's not counting marketing. That's not counting many, many other things that go into it. That's just how Hollywood accounting works. You don't even know about all of that. The Valiant Renegade, and I trust him. He knows the finances better than I do. Whatever their operating cost is that they announce, they need to make 3 times that much just to break even.
Yeah.
On average. So when you say, hey, they made more than it cost to make the movie, they made profit. No, they did not. They have still lost money. You know, when people say Solo lost money, when they say the Last Jedi lost money, yeah, technically you could argue that they made more money than they budgeted, that they said they budgeted, but you're missing a whole lot of columns of expenditures that they don't talk about publicly.
Yeah.
So this is what we've been saying for a long time. You want to make money? You know, you need to start spending less. And then you look at what they're spending their money on. You know, and you listen to someone like Tom Conkle, right? Or Script Doctor, or so many other people that work in the industry with these directors that are like, okay, cut, print, you know, we'll fix that in post. No, you don't fix it in post, because that's $10,000 to fix it in post. When you can do it
100 different endings, you know.
When your actors could be professional and get it right the first time, or do it again and get it right.
So this is the opposite of the Kathleen Kennedy approach.
Right, and there's that element of it too. Well, let's do a whole movie, and then let's do a whole different ending for it. And we had bad market studies. You know, people came back and said they didn't like it, so let's do another version. And you've basically spent the money to make 5 damn movies by the time you put out a Frankenstein edit hack job that ends up underperforming to, you know, and doesn't even make back what you put into it in the first place. It's friggin' ridiculous. And these are the kinds of things he's talking about. So on the one hand, I'm agreeing with Bob Iger, okay? But there's another element to this that I'm going to address, and that's that it's not just about the dollars. That's a big part of it. But there's also market confidence. And you know, when you say something that pisses people off, right? And they don't show up because you called them istophobes and you double down on it and you're putting out content that they don't want and they don't like and they're not going to support. Yeah. That's not a good business model either. So I don't care if you're doing it for $10 and change. If nobody comes to see it, you're still losing money.
They're still doing it. Like, watch when the Critical Drinkers do videos about the new TMNT Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trailer that came out and how it's bait.
Yeah.
To get you to start screaming about something, then they can call you an istophobe, and it's.
And they think that by doing that, you know, they still haven't learned. They still think that any publicity is good publicity, and that is not true. That has not been true for a very long time. We're talking about it. And people that may have gone to see it without knowing anything about it are now actively avoiding it because of what they've heard.
You're burning your brand. And I
absolutely.
I remember I didn't even want to do a story on this tonight or even talk about it because I don't really want to give the movie any attention. But I will say this, that remember I was saying, well, Seth Rogen's a producer. Maybe that just means he's hanging out in the van smoking up and just collecting a check while the actual creators of the work. Oh no, it looks like his hands all over this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yes,
and the reason I bring this up in connection with Bob Iger is because he did that interview a while back. A couple weeks back where he was talking about, messaging and how Disney has always been about, you know, positive social messages and we're not going to back down from that and that's important and this and that. And look, that's fine. There's a way to gild that lily, but that's not what people are hearing. And if he is so tone deaf to not understand how people receive that, he is driving the brand even further into the ground with statements like that.
Yeah. And he goes on. Iger goes on to say in this, "I'm really pleased to support that I'm getting from the content creators of the company a significant real, and that it comes from a form of reducing expense per content, whether it's a TV series or a film." Oh wait a minute, I already read that. So okay, here we go. As we look to reduce the content that we've created for our platforms, there are also opportunities to license to third parties, Iger said. For a while, that was verboten, or something we couldn't possibly do because we were favoring our own streaming platforms. But if we get to the point where we need less content on those platforms and we still have the capacity of producing that content, why not use it to grow revenue? And that's what we would likely do. Wow, what kind of shape are they in right now?
Well, again, they are more than 3 years behind the curve on this, and
you have somebody else, Neutron. Can you focus that out?
Disney is not alone in this, but again, we've been saying this. Look, there was an excuse during pandemics and lockdowns, right? You can't release something in theaters. You have no choice. You release it on your streaming service and hope to get more revenue from streaming services. Those days are long over. They are. It is. We're post-pandemic now. We are well post-pandemic. We're more than a year post-pandemic, and they're still trying to build their streaming services, and people are going, F you. I'm on to other things. I have better things to spend my money on. Bye. And they're left holding an empty sack. And they're throwing stuff on their streaming services that are all message and no story that nobody's interested in, and they're freaking going broke with it.
She-Hulk didn't even care about maintaining believability in its own series when she jumped out and broke the fourth wall at the end and started making.
Well, and I would have understood that if it was written as well as Deadpool was, because B, it was inspired directly by the comics that were written in that style and written well. But you've got people, and here we're getting back to that, humans that have become the AIs. They're just aping what they saw in the comics without understanding what they're doing, and you end up getting an article about the Loch Ness Monster that really degenerates into a midlife crisis.
Yeah, I didn't write that because I haven't been on a vacation.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that's literally what that She-Hulk was. It was a story about a green monster woman that degenerates into the midlife crisis of the writer.
Yeah, and she talks to an AI at the end too, because Kevin is an AI. We learn later on. It's a robot.
That's not even irony. That's just confession.
Okay, Disney is.
And real quick, I wanted to say hi to Gorilla Random Thoughts, who came
welcome,
to join
Gorilla
us too.
Random Thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome. And good night to the Horizon Talker. I forgot to say that earlier.
Oh yeah, take care.
Okay, Disney is very strong, the most powerful brand certainly in family entertainment. Iger said, adding.
That's not true anymore. That is not at all true anymore.
Let the man let the man speak. When the consumers see the live action,
I know it's your channel.
let the consumer see the live action Little Mermaid in May to remind you just how strong the brand is. Oh,
and there's irony, because yes, we will see how strong the brand is, and when it underperforms too, you will see that the brand is not strong at all. We've all known this all this time, Bob Iger. If you don't see this, your head is too far up your ass to understand what's going on. You should not be running this company.
I feel bad for the lead actress involved in that movie, but we'll see what happens. But he had frank and interesting comments about Marvel and Star Wars, suggesting that the company is carefully thinking about its approach to those brands moving forward. What we have to look at Marvel is not necessarily the volume of Marvel storytelling, but how many times we go back to the well on certain characters, Iger said. Sequels typically work well for us, but do you find a third or fourth, for instance? Is it time to turn to other characters? There's nothing in any way inherently off in terms of the Marvel brand, I think. We just have to look at what characters and stories we are mining. Does that mean no Shang-Chi too?
No, that now he's just deluding himself. Now he's making excuses for getting away from the characters that people actually want and moving forward with the MCU. At least that's how I read it. If he didn't mean that, then he is not representing himself very well. And he is hurting his brand.
And if you look at the trajectory of Marvel over the next 5 years, you'll see a lot of newness. Now we're going to turn back to the Avengers franchise, but with a whole set of different Avengers as an example.
There you go.
That's
your
Avengers.
MCU, guys.
It's all the kids they keep introducing, like Ant-Man's daughter.
All the daughters. All the women who are not good enough themselves to do anything. They can only ride the coattails of the men that went
Chavez
before
will
them.
be in there probably because they introduced. Yeah, okay. Ironheart. Anyway, let's move on. Star Wars, we made 3 of what we called saga films, which is obviously the successors to George Lucas's first 6. They did very well at the
It's obvious to him. It's not obvious to the fan base that fucking left them, which is why they're not making money.
I didn't feel like either of the sequels to those new trilogy were successors to each other. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. They're not even consistent within their own films, let alone in relationship to the IPs they acquired.
Whether or not you like the original prequel trilogy, at least they follow each other. Do you understand? There's a progression there, and you understand how this happens after this. You understand that they are part of a trilogy. If you didn't like the trilogy, they didn't feel like part of a trilogy. They felt like each director was doing his own thing, but they did.
Honestly, there's the famous line that George Lucas says, it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
There's a poetry to it. It rhymes. And you can see that even if you have problems with the prequels have similar story elements that, you're expecting. They lead into the original stuff. It makes sense. Then you get to the sequel trilogy, and now you're not only playing a different song, you're playing 3 friggin' different songs in different tempos of different styles.
It felt like, especially Force Awakens, that felt too dark for the first movie because you have Han being killed. That should have been something maybe you save for the sequel if you were going to do something like that. Don't do it.
Again, it's very clear these people don't know how to tell stories. The biggest complaint that a lot of people had with that first movie, aside from the Han Solo thing, was it's just a repeat of Star Wars. They're just retelling the story of Star Wars. Again, it's the same kind of stupid human AI, right? I don't understand Star Wars, so I'm just going to mirror the plot elements of the first one without understanding how the technology works or how the lore works, because fuck all that stuff. I can do whatever I want because it's fiction. That's not how story writing works, but this is what you get, people. Actually, the more I think about this, screw it. Let them go on strike. Write all these scripts with AIs. It wouldn't be any worse. It'd be the same shit.
Okay, but he goes on, so we made 2 so-called standalones in Rogue One and Solo. I want to interrupt here. I believe Rogue One started as a project at Lucasfilm before it was bought by Disney.
That makes sense. That is I had never heard that before, but that makes sense to me.
No, and I had heard it had started as a project that Lucas might have eventually done it himself under the Lucasfilm banner, but then it got sold to Disney. But they held on to that project. Rogue One did quite well. Solo was a little disappointing to us, yeah. And I don't think
Rogue
Solo
One,
was...
I got to say this. Rogue One is still the only... Well, no, that's not true, because now Mando's doing pretty well, too.
Right.
But when it comes to toy sales... Rogue One toys and Mandalorian toys are the only ones that are selling from the Disney era.
Right. Solo was a little disappointing. For starters, Solo, if you watched Solo, which I know you didn't, but that wasn't set up, I think, as a Solo movie. I think it was supposed to be part 1 of a trilogy, and perhaps part 2 of that trilogy might have been an Obi-Wan movie that picked up off of Solo. Because they were setting things up in Solo with Darth Maul being around.
There was originally a plan to do these a series of one-off films focusing on Han Solo, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett. In fact, the Book of Boba Fett, the basic outline of Book of Boba Fett was meant to just be a movie. So when people look at the Book of Boba Fett and say, oh my God, this thing drags. Yeah, it's because they took a 2-hour movie and drew it out into 8 episodes or 10 episodes or however long it was. I don't remember.
But he says at a higher level, Iger said that the focus is to focus on high quality programming, calling out that they're not only the core franchises, but also FX, which he praises both producer content as a brand. That means the FX channel. You own too much Disney. This is the problem here. He goes
real quick.
Yeah,
I got to interrupt because Auditor Dread makes a great point. Don't worry, guys. Marvel will save Disney. That Brie Larson is the next Robert Downey Jr. Cute. I see what you're doing there.
This is their...
And deleted scenes interrupting breaking news, original screenplay, everything, everywhere, all at once.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things about that movie.
I have too, and everything I've seen about it looks really, really good. I do want to check that out.
I think Star Wars Visions was more accepted by the fans than the sequels, even if it wasn't canon. Many don't accept the sequels as canon anyway. Well,
yeah, you're not wrong there.
I think one of the problems with the Marvel movies is they keep wanting every new actor to be Robert Downey Jr., doing all the quips and stuff. And notice how Paul Rudd is treated in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yep.
He has humor, but it's not the same kind of humor that like a Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd gave out. Do you understand?
Right. He did not have to replicate someone else. He was a different character, and he was allowed to be himself in a way that that people could like his character. And he wasn't, the constant butt of the joke, and undermined. Honestly, who was the hero? Who was the hero of Ghostbuster Afterlife? Who was?
Phoebe.
Maybe.
You don't think so?
But that's kind of a stretch. I mean, you could almost say it was Egon. But honestly, it was an ensemble thing. This was an Avengers type movie.
Yeah.
No one of them was the hero.
You're right. I was thinking protagonist, but you're right. Hero, that can be many.
Yes, you could say that Phoebe was the protagonist because you're seeing it from her point of view. But who was the hero of the movie? Not really Phoebe. Her brother played an important role. Her mother played an important role. The teacher played a very important role. Egon probably played the most important part of it, but none of them was the hero on their own.
At least it didn't go to the Knives Out sequel. Adapted screen.
I have no idea what Women Talking is.
I don't know, but at least it's not the Knives Out sequel. He goes on to say, he goes on to say, there's one thing, obviously, that we didn't talk about, those brands, Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, and Pixar. Pixar has been, it's not in the good shape that you think it is.
Deleted Scenes is 8 for 16. 50-50 is not bad when you have this many, per category.
Interesting. I think HBO proved that, well, in their Halcyon days, when high-quality programming made a big difference and not volume, he added. And because the streaming platforms require so much volume, one has to question whether that's the right direction to go, or if you can be more curated, I use the word judicious a few times, but I guess more picky about what you're making and concentrate on quality and not volume. And I have a suggestion, too. Maybe on your hit show, don't fire one of your lead actresses that's very popular with the fans. You cannot do that too. That might be an idea.
Well, and that's just a result. That's just a symptom of the problem, because the problem is continually putting the message first instead of all the important aspects of business. Mm-hmm. They literally are willing to destroy, whether they're conscious of it or not, they're willing to destroy their company and their franchises for a message that nobody cares about. And there's only so many investor dollars that will dry up eventually, no matter how badly they want to push a message.
Yeah. So we'll see what Disney does. I can tell you something about HBO too. Everybody thinks HBO always had hit after hit. I remember when they were first growing.
Speaking of hit after hit, Deleted Scene says, sadly, no one has been slapped yet on this program.
Let's not have a repeat of that. That was an embarrassment to them. What did I want to say, though? But I remember when when HBO was first starting out with a lot of their drama series. And if you think about HBO, they even back to the 80s, they had original programming. This wasn't something that happened in the 90s, but Oz was big. That was a prison drama. And then from Oz, you got The Sopranos, which was a huge hit.
Yeah.
Sopranos went off, and they were sort of in the wilderness for a while after The Sopranos went off. They were hunting for their next big show.
Right.
Eventually, that comes in the form of Game of Thrones. I mean, they had Deadwood, which was popular, or at least had a following, and then they canceled it, which got a lot of people angry. So I don't know if it was a ratings hit. It really wasn't until Game of Thrones that they got their next big hit. And I guess they have one now in the form of House of Dragon, which I haven't watched yet, but
yeah,
I know it's popular at least. Oh, well, let's move on. Let's get off of Disney, but actually we're still on Disney because we're talking about
yeah, we're
Deadpool
kind of
3.
still on Disney if you think about it. There we go.
Disney, leave the creators alone while they're making this movie and just have them make a good, offensive comedy like the last two, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And if they want to make fun of you too, let them do it, because it's not like you guys haven't made fun of Walt.
Yeah.
Especially with that Dumbo remake you did. Okay, I brought this up because I thought this was interesting. I remember a while back, in the early days of this channel, I was picking on Robert Pattinson when he said, I don't think actors should have to work out. Now, of course, I learned later on that what he does is he puts on these weird personas in interviews, and that's what happened in that persona, which I still think is weird.
And it definitely does not help his case. No. There was a lot of negative backlash on that.
But I guess the idea was he wasn't being serious when he said that. But if you're playing a superhero, you need to kind of bulk up or at least be in as good a shape as you can be. But Hugh Jackman is officially in Wolverine mode. The actor shared a photo of his daily meal plan as his bulking phase goes into overdrive ahead of filming Deadpool 3, in which he will reprise the role of Wolverine opposite Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. The film marks the first Deadpool movie and Jackman's first time playing Wolverine in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don't tie this to the MCU unless you're going to make fun of it. I don't want them tying it to the MCU. Just leave it in the X-Men universe from Fox. Anyway, we'll see. Bulking, a day in the life, Jackman wrote as a caption while sharing a photo of the 6 meals he will eat in a given day. Thank you, Chef Mario, for helping me stay healthy and properly fed whilst becoming Wolverine again. I now had an image of Mario in his chef's hat from the Yoshi's Cookie games when he said that.
I do want to point out, Auditor Dread said, I'm surprised that Hugh Jackman didn't bulk up from the bug diet that these Hollywood types keep trying to selling people on. Keep in mind, when the Hollywood types are trying to sell you on the bugs, they're not eating the bugs. They just want you eating them. Crap.
Jackman's meals include black bass, 2,000 calories, Patagonia salmon, 2,100 calories, I thought fish was lightweight. 2 chicken burgers around 1,000 calories each, and 2 grass-fed sirloins, 1,100 calories each. That means Jackson is consuming over 8,000 calories a day as he gets bulked up for Wolverine.
But he's getting 8,000 calories in mostly protein, which means
he's seems good protein. Yeah.
Which means and if he's working out the way I know he does, he is turning that directly into muscle.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, Jonathan Majors ate 6,000 calories for 4 months in order to play a bodybuilder in his buzzy Sundance movie magazine dreams. Jackson is eating far more. Back in January, Jackman, not Jackson. Back in January, Jackman told Stephen Colbert on The Late Show that he was building up to eating 6,000 calories a day ahead of playing Wolverine. Jackman was on Broadway at the time, starring in The Music Man. I'm building up. I'm on about 4,500 calories at the moment, Jackman said at the time. I wore a heart monitor for The Music Man because my trainer said, I need to know what I'm working with here because I'm trying to bulk you up. I burned 1,500 calories in the show 8 times a week. So she goes on, you got to eat. So I was eating 4,500 calories a day. It was not pretty. Now I'm just eating and training. One thing Jackman won't be doing to bulk up is taking steroids. The actor said during a January interview on HBO's who's talking to Chris Wallace that the physical prep to play Wolverine often took toll on his body, but he never once turned to steroids to pack on the pounds of muscles. Over the years, people have wondered, did he juice? Wallace asked. Did he take steroids? No, I love my job and I love Wolverine, Jackman answered. I got to be careful with what I say here, and I had been told anecdotally what the side effects are of that, and I was like, I don't love it that much. So no, I don't. I just did it the old school way, and I tell you, I've eaten more chickens. I'm so sorry to all the vegans and vegetarians and to the chickens of the world. Literally, the karma is not good for me. If the deity has anything related to chickens, I'm in trouble. So Deadpool 3 is set to release in theaters on November 8th from Disney. This November 8th?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, okay. I thought it was next year. All right, let's move on. More stuff.
I could be wrong.
Got to get through this. Anyway, what do you think, huh? He's dedicated, I'll say that.
Oh, he absolutely is. And honestly, anybody who's ever been, into bodybuilding and whatnot, like I used to be, you can look and you can tell that he's playing it pure. But then you look at some of the wrestlers, you look at a certain governor, they juiced, and you can tell. You can tell by the fruits of their labors. You can tell.
Yeah. So Jenny Ortega in talks to star in Tim Burton's Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I'm Beetlejuice 2, which I'm thinking they're doing a Beetlejuice 2. Jenny Ortega is eyeing a role in Tim Burton's Beetlejuice 2. Variety has confirmed. Ortega, best known for her role as Wednesday Addams in Netflix's recent series reboot Wednesdays, and talks to play the daughter of Lydia Dietz, portrayed by Winona Ryder in the original film. I'm assuming she would also reprise the role, maybe. But
I don't see why not.
This marks her second time working with Burton, who was an executive producer on Wednesday and directed 4 of its 8 episodes. Michael Keaton is set to reprise the role as the title character, which I could totally see him playing Beetlejuice again, couldn't you? I think that would work. So I'm on board with this. If Burton's involved, I think this could work. Representatives for Warner Brothers and Ortega did not immediately respond to Variety's request for comment. I could see her starring in it because she already works with his company. He doesn't like to work with a lot of his usual actors, right? So I can see this happening. The sequel has been at the works at Warner Brothers for some time before Brad Pitt's production company Plan B officially boarded it in February of last year. The original Beetlejuice centers on Charles, Jeffrey Jones Delia, Catherine O'Hara, and Lydia Dietz Ryder, who inhabit a home previously occupied by the Maitlands, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. The Maitlands died in a car accident, but their ghost selves want to re-inhabit their former house, recruiting Beetlejuice, a bio-exorcist, to scare away the Dietzes. Met with critical acclaim, Beetlejuice grossed $74 million in North America on a $15 million budget. Variety's 1987 review praised Keaton's performance, saying, Keaton pops up from his grave to liven things up when antics are pitting the good ghosts against the intruders become a trite cat and mouse game. Talks of the sequel surfaced in 2013 when Keaton confirmed that he and Burton were talking about doing a sequel. Burton said in 2014 that he missed the character Beetlejuice, saying there's only one Beetlejuice, and that's Michael. There is a script, and I would love to work with him again. I think there is now a better chance than ever. I miss the character. There's something that's cathartic and amazing about it. I think it's closer than ever. Ryder reconfirmed that the film is in the works on a late night with Seth Meyers' appearance in 2015. Okay.
All I can say is if they bring back Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, they really better keep the firearms off the set. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think they need to bring them back. They could just do it in a new location and have it be about Winona Ryder and her daughter. Maybe there'll be other. I don't know. They maybe just leave that alone.
I see. Well, the other problem becomes if they do bring them back. Do ghosts age? I mean,
well, as we've seen in the Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel, you do a lot of things with CG now. So
that is true. That is true.
So here we go. Let's go to. So I don't know. I look forward to Beetlejuice 2. I didn't know this was coming. I think this could work. Winona returning. Don't tease me. I don't see why not. Best sound, Top Gun Maverick. Sound's an important category.
Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah. Priscilla Presley to voice self in Agent Elvis animated series at Netflix. What on earth was this? I was like, wait a minute, what? Priscilla Presley has signed on to voice herself in Netflix's adult animated action comedy series Agent Elvis. She joins Matthew McConaughey, who is set to voice the role of Elvis Presley, her late husband. Caitlin Olsen, Johnny Knoxville, Niecy Nash, Tom Kenny, and Don Cheadle will also lend their voices to the animated series created by Priscilla Presley and John Eddy. Ordered to series in August 2019, Agent Elvis follows Presley as he trades in his jumpsuit for a jetpack when he is covertly inducted into a secret government spy program to battle the dark forces that threaten the country he loves, all while holding down his day job as the king of rock and roll. Netflix will debut Agent Elvis on March 17th with guest lists for the show including Ed Helms, Jason Mantzoukas, Christina Hendricks, Kieran Culkin, Chris Elliott, Simon Pegg, and Tara Strong. Agent Elvis comes from Sony Pictures Animation, Sony Pictures TV, and Authentic Brands Group. Priscilla Presley and Eddie will also serve as executive producers, and Archer veteran Mike Arnold will write and serve as showrunner and head writer. That's what this was reminding me of when I saw the trailer.
Yeah.
Eddie serves as co-showrunner and writer. McConaughey will exec produce alongside Kevin Knoll. Okay, and all okay.
I'll tell you what, man. This is one of those things that's so crazy it just might work. If they do this right, it could be really, really good.
I could see it going either way. Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be foobar, but it could also be, especially. I mean, I don't know how much Priscilla Presley's really involved in. Obviously, she's voicing herself. Obviously, she's one of the producers here. Claims that she has some writing credit here. If they're writing around some of her ideas, it could be really good, because if she would be drawing on real life, right? And so the best speculative fiction, is the ones that very closely mirror real life, And Elvis Presley was known for being a big. He fancied himself as kind of a Law and Order kind of guy. He wanted to. He was deputized by the police. That was why he was meeting with Nixon. He wanted to help out in some way, in a FBI-ish kind of way. So you can work that in, and say, yeah, that's what happened. He met with Nixon and he became an agent, and these are his stories.
Yeah, and from the trailer, it doesn't look like they're making fun of Elvis Presley himself. It's more about the situation around him.
Yeah,
like his pet chimpanzee that is getting into shenanigans. Looks like he was gambling in one scene. And just. I don't know. We'll see. It could be brilliant. It could be a disaster, but I'm curious. I'll say that. And, I guess they have the official music license too, because I heard the songs in the trailer, and Sony's producing, and Priscilla's giving it her blessing. So,
and I was gonna say, this is. I mean, we keep wanting the entertainment to do something new and different. This is pretty damn new and different. This is Cocaine Bear level of new and different.
I'm curious. I'll give it a look. Maybe it'll be brilliant, and maybe it'll introduce a new generation to Elvis.
And maybe I'll just have to do before it launches, have to do a watch party of Bubba Hotep or something.
Oh, I love Bubba Hotep. Could be funny if they don't make fun. I don't think they're making fun of Elvis. I think it's more the situation he's in, because it looked like he was still, the cool king of rock and roll. He didn't look like they were making fun of him or Priscilla. It looked like they were normal.
I honestly don't.
That were weird.
I could be wrong about this, but my gut tells me that Priscilla wouldn't let them do that to Elvis.
And I don't think they need to either. I don't think he needs to be the butt of the joke. I think he can be the what did they call it in the old days? The straight man versus the ridiculous situation. Yeah, and I think that could work out well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking. We were just talking earlier about Ted Newhart show, or any of those kinds of where the straight guy is dealing with the ridiculousness going on around him. Yeah.
And that's comedy too. I mean, that's a comic art too, playing that character. I forgot one of the silent film actors. I forget who it was, but he was like the opposite of like a Chaplin. He was like the stuff that things were always happening around him, but he was trying to be normal. Do you understand? That was like
exactly
that comedy. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get a look when it comes on. We'll see if it turns out any good. Let's move on.
Last one of the night. This one.
This is the last one. Okay.
This is interesting.
Batman Cape Crusader lands 2-season order at Amazon after being axed by HBO. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Batman is coming to Amazon. Batman Cape Crusader, an animated series from J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, and Bruce Timm, is moving to the streamer after being axed at HBO. The series was originally handed a straight-to-series order HBO Max in 2021, but was one of 6 animated projects that were dropped by Warner Brothers Discovery Streamer as part of its cost-cutting moves. Batman Cape Crusader is a reimagining of the Batman mythology based on the characters from DC. It is produced by Warner Brothers Animation, Bad Robot Productions, and 6 and Idaho, with Tim Abrams-Reeves, Sam Register, Ed Brubaker executive producing. Tim is behind the classic Batman the Animated Series that ran for over 100 episodes in the mid-90s. Bruce Timm's an old pro. He was responsible for that Killing Joke adaptation, which was not so good.
Right.
Because he seemed to be obsessed with pairing Batman with Batgirl, which shouldn't ever have happened. But
nope.
It doesn't mean the series will be bad, but as you once said before on the stream, what I mentioned, you said is J.J. Abrams involved.
Yeah.
How is this happening, though? Because this got canceled. And how is this now landing on Amazon?
Okay. I don't know, but I'll tell you what my gut instinct is. I suspect that what's happening here is this is what happens as a result of the new direction that they are taking, the DCU, I guess is what they're calling it now. Anything that is not specifically in that what's his name, the guy that's doing DCU now, Gunn,
James Gunn,
the James Gunn canon, so to speak, with the exception of the Pattinson sparkly bats, because they have contractual agreements to that. Anything else that was in development and happening that isn't directly involved in that, they're licensing out to somebody else.
Okay, good.
They're still making money off of it, but they need to distance it from what they're doing so that they still make their money, but there's no brand confusion, so to speak.
Part of me thought there was a contract in Abrams that if he could get somebody else to fund it, if Warner Brothers wasn't interested, he could do that. But that maybe what you're saying is
well, that's
where
actually your theory is sound too. It could be right.
I don't know. It could be either one. You're right, because maybe Warner Brothers figures, hey, they want to do this, and we can get a bunch of money from Amazon and put it into our coffers and license out the way Disney was talking about licensing out some of its stuff to other companies.
But what it comes down to either way is it's not as dumb as it sounds. It is still them using a property and making money off of it, even though they don't feel that they can continue forward with it on their own platform under their own auspices.
So basically, we have a Lord of the Rings television series that's unrelated to New Line's Lord of the Rings movies coming out. We have a Tomb Raider animated series in development at Netflix, but Amazon will be doing live-action Tomb Raider movies and TV series.
Mm-hmm.
This is very confusing to me. This is... Like, I understood how when the WB became a channel, how Superman animated series went to that, as opposed to being on Fox, which is where Batman the animated series was on, because it's a Warner Brothers channel, and now everything goes there. Now I'm living in a reality where their properties are going to their own competition. Or are they not even considering Amazon the competition anymore? And is the streaming wars over? What is going on? I don't understand what's going on.
I would speculate that what we're seeing is the beginning of the end, and what's happening is what I have been saying for nearly 5 years has to happen. You can't have every single studio having their own streaming service and expecting them all to float. A couple are going to float to the top, and eventually we're going to go back to the syndication / network / cable model of a couple of networks, and everyone licenses their material out to them. It's got to happen.
Because if you think about HBO Max, what is HBO Max but HBO?
Right. That was the HBO was the biggest one. Remember when we were talking about having 3 different streaming services for HBO? It's like, guys, you can't compete with yourself.
Not to mention the fact they had the DC channel by itself. They had these other things. So
you've got to start, and all eyes are also on Disney and Hulu. What's going to happen there? They need to either combine them or get rid of one of them.
Here's what I don't understand about Iger. Iger is the one that had to buy everything up, and now he's talking about licensing out.
Yeah. Well, because this is the closest you're going to get to Iger admitting he screwed up. He invested too much on a bunch of IPs that tanked because of poor management, and that's not, that's 20th Century Fox, it's Star Wars, it's Marvel, it's all of that, but it's also the streaming services and even ESPN to a certain degree, even though that's the biggest moneymaker they got. They've mismanaged them. They overextended themselves, and they're deeply, deeply in the hole.
Yeah. I think Warner Brothers understood that, which I guess is why this is happening. I think Disney needs to learn that lesson.
Yep.
Disney, give up Tron. Give it to somebody else.
Right.
I want to see Tron come back in a good way, and I don't want you involved in it. I hope Deadpool 3 is good and they don't just make it another MCU shitfest. Let's see here, though. We got so many questions about that show. Did Kevin Conroy do any of the voice work for the show prior to his death?
Yeah, I
have
know.
I have no idea. But if they did, they wouldn't be able to use part of it unless he did it for every episode.
True.
No, actually, no. Oh, never mind. I wonder if they would get what's his name, the guy that played Commissioner Gordon in the new movies. He was doing it on the radio show that they did. Is his name Jeffrey Wright?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he could reprise his role because he's done it already audio wise. He could maybe do Batman.
The other one they could get is what's his name? The one that played Jameson, the yellow M&M.
Oh yeah, no, he'd be good. I forget his name now. The guy that played he was in Whiplash.
Simmons.
I can't think of his name. J.K. Simmons. I could see him playing it. Yeah, definitely. The women killed by Alec Baldwin left out of memoriam. They also left Gene Siskel out of memoriam when they did the. Whoopi Goldberg actually came out and did. I know a lot of you didn't like him, but he still loved movies, and this thumbs up's for you. She actually, I'll give her credit. She actually gave a shout out to Gene Siskel when everybody else was ignoring him when she hosted the Oscars that one year. Give Tron to Sony. Sony.
That's actually not a bad idea. I would love to see that.
I'd love to see Sony have Tron.
And then turn around and license it back to have it be distributed by Disney.
Yeah, I would like to see what Sony could do with Tron.
Film editing everywhere all at once.
Everything
everywhere all at once.
It sounds like it was.
Sounds like it's kind of sweeping. That film is kind of sweeping, which we kind of
expected.
It
may get Best Picture. You never know.
Okay. Good.
I think that wraps me up for this week. I don't know about this new animated series that's how involved J.J. Abrams is. Now, to be fair, not everything J.J. Abrams has been involved with his career is bad. I mean, I loved Fringe. He was involved with that as a producer. That was an excellent science fiction series. So he can, and he did happen to do better with television than movies. So
I honestly feel like Fringe was good and successful in spite of him, rather than because of him.
I'm hoping this could be good in spite of him as well. So
I'm with you.
I don't know. Is this tied to the Matt Reeves, the Batman movies, or is this another?
I think this is something itself entirely.
So there are 100 different versions of Batman. I know that Batman the Animated Series, it had things in it that were inspired by the Burton Batman movies, but it was its own animal. But it took, like, the bat symbol he wore on his chest. That's the Tim Burton Batman symbol. Oswald Cobblepot, at least on the original animated series, he had the three fingers, the flipper hands, like he did in the Batman Returns. So they borrowed some elements from the movie, even though it was its own original universe. So maybe. But
the fact that Joker's still alive makes it very clear that it is not truly, the same, continuity.
They did refer to him as Jack Napier. The psychologist did refer to him as Jack Napier once. Later on, they retconned that and said that the Joker's had dozens of aliases over his
and that's pretty well established by the time you get to Killing Joke. Or maybe it wasn't that one. Maybe it was Arkham Asylum, the graphic novel, where they talk about. Where they first introduced that concept of Joker's history being multiple choice.
Yeah.
That's not a new concept. That's been around for decades. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so coming up Monday, no Batman show on Soundtracks with Birdman.
Right, but of course, by all means, subscribe and follow, because Soundtracks with Birdman is a good channel, and he's got great content that you're going to want to see anyway.
Yes, he does. He does unboxings all the time of soundtracks. If you want a guru of movie soundtracks, you want to go to his channel. He will tell you what's worth buying, what's not. He goes on rants sometimes, but they're fun to watch.
Yep.
Tuesday. I'm unaware.
Yeah, I don't know that anything.
Not to my knowledge, we are on March 21st. We're doing the Batman Superman movies.
So it's not a bad idea to go ahead and subscribe to Mr. Matchstick, because we'll be there on the 21st.
I figures my sister gets rid of her HBO Max subscription. I could have watched that but I'll find other means to watch that.
Own physical media.
I know. I'd like to see it to know if I like it, though. That Damian Wayne, I don't know.
Yeah. Good
anyway,
point.
Wednesday on 3:15, Black Sunday rewatch on Soundtracks with Birdman. Not the horror movie, the 1977 movie about the terror ... ist possible attack on the Super Bowl.
Right.
Okay, John Williams score. It's a classic. It's a classic 70s thriller. They did a lot of great thrillers in the 1970s. Remember that? That was a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Remember 3 Days of the Condor?
Oh yes, I do.
That's a good one. Yeah. Thursday, by demand live stream on Netter's Network. You guys missed the drawing last time, but she may do a drawing again when she gets her.
Yeah, get her up to the next round 00 number, and there will be another drawing for some even better prizes.
I hear one of the prizes Troy's saving up now. It'll be a big ball of Troy's earwax that he's rolling up for you now. I'm kidding. That was Al Yankovic's show. Remember, he says, "What's this?" And he pulls out this wax ball, and his fan club says, "Oh, we sent you a combined roll of all of our earwax." And he goes, "Ah!" Like, throws it.
Gross.
I think it was called Weird Al TV instead of MTV. Like it was like he interrupted the network and took it over for a day. That was funny.
I kind of understand that.
Okay, so Friday, last drinks with and last call, drinks and chat with Storyman Jack on Troy Pacelli's network.
Yeah, he's a great YouTuber, definitely worth a follow, and all the links are always in the descriptions for my videos. And we'll be talking with him about some of his stories. He tells all kinds of stories. A lot of his content is up on YouTube, and definitely deserves a check out. We complain a lot about the what's coming out of Hollywood, and we say we need new talent telling new stories. Well, here it is, and I'm bringing it to you.
Saturday, March 4th, Netter's Network Films with Friends, Chained.
Yep, Vincent D'Onofrio in a Jennifer Lynch film.
Yeah, and on Big Al's channel, they had You Did Streets of Fire. I'm sad I couldn't make it for that one. I would have liked to have gone on that one for you guys, but been busy. But that's a classic, Streets of Fire.
Great soundtrack. I love that soundtrack, man.
That movie was insanely popular in Japan. Like the young guys in Japan and the women, they started dressing up in the poodle skirts and the pompadours after that movie. Did you know that?
That was, and it wasn't specifically...
That became a thing over there in the 80s.
Yeah. It wasn't specifically because of that film. That film happened to dovetail into it. Yeah. Because there was other things going on that was inspiring that.
I see.
And it just was a great synergy. And I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. And when you tell me that, and knowing the era, yep, that is exactly what was happening.
It's funny because there's this one video game series I play called Yakuza, where you run around Tokyo as a Yakuza member, right? And they had one called Yakuza 0, which takes place in the 1980s. So there are all these little side quests and things where you run into those guys with the pompadours and stuff, the young wayward youth in Japan, or they're trying to be wayward. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get you. David Pensek says, crazy, but thank you for putting the time zones in on your show times. Absolutely. That's a habit I picked up just because, I pattern what I do here after, the television that I grew up with. And here in the Midwest, everything was Central / Eastern. So I do it that way.
I guess I should start doing Central on mine, too.
Well, and I do that because I figure most of if we do that, we're pretty much covering half the country, right? We're getting central and eastern, and I think everyone that's left of us, I mean, geographically, not politically, understands and does the calculations based on that.
Yeah, it's a good series. Do you know what's interesting? I believe Florida has 2 time zones. Did you know that? Depending on the part of the state you're in.
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple states that are like that. Everything, whatever, all at once. 5, all quiet, 4.
They'll probably give it to Everywhere All at Once. I think that's going to be the winner.
I don't know. I'm looking at those 2 movies, and even though I haven't seen either of them,
Give it to a science fiction movie. Come on. It's been a while since 2001.
well, I'm just saying,
Okay.
I look at those 2 movies doing well, and I'm like, good. It doesn't matter to me which one gets it. It sounds like they're both good movies that deserve it.
It's always good, actually, when you have an Oscar. It doesn't often happen, but when you actually like the movies up for Best Picture. Like
I would also say this about a movie like All Quiet on the Western Front. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but if you did see it and you liked it, go see the original. Those guys that were in that movie all actually served. They, in a lot of ways, were just playing themselves.
It's a great classic movie. I watched it in actually watched it in a literature class in college. That's how much it was held in esteem by the teacher.
The guys in that movie literally were suffering from shell shock as they were filming the movie.
Yeah, you see what they went through.
And when the director would say, "Do you need us to break?" No, we got to get through this. They treated it like they were back at war. We got to get through it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's that was an awful war.
Mm-hmm. Well, they all are. All wars are awful wars. This is why you should always question leadership that wants to push us into war.
Oh yeah.
And not talk about peaceful options and fighting other people's wars for them.
Oh, yeah.
Or financing other people's wars. Look, this is not a political thing. This is not a left or right thing.
I know it isn't. It's a human thing, I think.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. You're absolutely right.
So I guess that wraps us up for this week. I'll see you next time. Any last words, Troy? Yeah,
I just want to thank everybody in the chat for putting up with my rants. I know I got off topic a bunch of times, but you know how it is with me. I'm passionate. I get hot about this kind of stuff. So thanks for sticking with us.
All right, y'all have a good week.
Take care. Bye-bye.